Hey friends, it's Jessica from Three Rivers Homestead and welcome to the first video in our 2025 Three Rivers Challenge series. Throughout the months of January and February, I'm going to be bringing you all of the meals we eat during the pantry challenge that we do every year. We are not going to the grocery store. We are solely eating from our food storage to try to eat down all of the produce, the meat, and the eggs that we raised this year, and all of the produce that we have canned. That is the goal, to make space for the upcoming growing season. And so I will be sharing, as I have, I think for the last 4 years here on YouTube, I will be sharing all of our meals and bringing them to you every Sunday in a video. So since this week, the month didn't start until towards the middle of the week, I only have 2 days of meals for you in this video. And then starting next week, we'll have a full week to share with you. As of today, it is January 3rd, and I know some of you are wondering, yes, I am still pregnant. So we are just making the best of being very overdue with this baby, and I'm in good spirits. I went to my midwife yesterday. I'm in good health. Baby looks great. I look great. It's just a waiting game at this point, and so I've just been keeping myself busy making food for the family, and that's what I'm going to share with you. The goal in the Pantry Challenge this first week is really to eat from what is available in the kitchen. So all of the leftovers from our winter break that had accumulated in the fridge. Primarily this week's video has meals using up a lot of the leftovers from our New Year's Eve spread. So you're going to see how I turned those into meals. Once we get through everything in the fridge, the next priority is focusing on fresh produce that we have. We do have fresh produce available during the Pantry Challenge. We have storage apples in our overflow fridge. We do have storage carrots. We have winter squash, onions, garlic, potatoes, all sorts of things like that. And so the goal is to eat a lot of that stuff up before it starts to soften and go bad. If it does start to soften, it's no big deal. I'll be bringing you how I'll be canning and preserving that and using it in other ways. And then after we get through a lot of the fresh stuff, the next priority is going through the freezers. And because items in the freezer have a shorter lifespan than the items that I've canned. So we'll be using up a lot of the frozen produce, and then finally we'll be getting to a lot of the canned goods. And all throughout that, obviously using up our dried goods. Now there will be days where things are busy and canned goods are very convenient, so I will be using some of that, but the goal is to try to save the canned stuff towards the end of the challenge and go in the order that I just mentioned, so that the things that are going to go bad the soonest will be used up. So that's the plan. Before I get started sharing with you our meals, I wanted to thank the sponsor of this video, Backwoods Home Magazine. You guys have been hearing me talking about them a lot over the last couple of months. I love this publication. I've been reading them probably for about 15 years. It's the first time I picked up this magazine. It was when we were dreaming of building our homestead, and it is just full of so much good information about every aspect of homesteading that you can think of, from gardening to canning to cooking from scratch to animal husbandry, hunting, all sorts of like self-sufficiency. There's even sometimes a little homeschooling info sprinkled in there. So I'm grateful for them for sponsoring this video, and also grateful that they have provided my subscribers with an opportunity to get 50% off a subscription using the link down in the video description. You can either choose from Backwoods Home Magazine. They also have a sister magazine, Self-Reliance. Both are amazing publications. Make sure you check them out. And thank you once again for sponsoring this video. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to share with you the meals that we have had over the last couple of days since the month of January has begun. And then I will be back next week with a full week of videos. A full week for me in filming is 5 days worth of meals. I like to give myself 2 days off. Typically it's Friday and Saturday. I don't take them off from the pantry challenge, but I do take them off from filming just to give myself a break. It gives me an opportunity to do repeat meals, and to just take a break from filming, because sometimes that's a little bit of extra work. So we'll be back, Lord willing, next week with a baby. But for now, let's get into this week's meals.
We had an absolutely lovely break with Adam home. For those of you that don't know, Adam works full time off the homestead at a university, which is closed the last 2 weeks of December. So we get him home with us, and we have lots of fun traditions that kind of center around food that we do during that time. It was just a lovely time of rest and relaxation, spending time together as a family, playing games, eating good food, and really waiting for this baby to come. But one of the nights every year for 7 years, Adam has done a shrimp boil. We really enjoyed that. And then on New Year's Eve, we had a lovely snack spread. Actually did multiple spreads. Here was the one earlier in the day. Then I made some homemade sushi and put it out. So you're going to see in this week's video a lot of the leftovers from these snack spreads were in the fridge and needing to be used up in the first couple days of the month. And so that is what I'm going to bring you. This is the first morning, and I had some leftover vegetables, a little bit of fruit. We had some potatoes. These were potatoes I used to make potato salad, and I had boiled way too many, so I just had a few extras that were nice and soft. Here's the leftover veggies from the veggie tray, just a few berries, a lot of salami and pepperoni, and then I cracked about 18 eggs. And I'm going to make a breakfast casserole. I greased the bottom of my baking dish, and then I smashed those potatoes on top. Then I chopped up some of the salami. This was like a spicy salami. It has a lot of flavor, so that's going to be great in this breakfast casserole. Then I chopped up some mushrooms and radishes. We're just kind of layering all of this in here and kind of spreading it out evenly. I'm just going to salt this. Like I said, that salami had a lot of seasoning in it, so we don't need to add a lot extra to this. I scrambled up the 18 eggs, and we're just going to pour that over the top of all of the other things that I put into the pan. And then I usually take a fork or some kind of utensil and break up any yolks and just kind of press down all of the contents of the pan just to make sure everything is covered in egg. And then I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of pepper on the top, and we're going to bake that on 350 for about 40 minutes. In the meantime, while it's baking, I'm going to prepare a little fruit salad. I had peeled some oranges the day before that the kids didn't really touch. They ate most of the fruit that was sitting out, but I just cut up a lot of that, poured a little bit of orange juice in there. Adding some kind of citrus juice prevents the apples from browning, and then we can move on to making some toast. Now, I don't always buy store-bought bread, but Adam had bought a bunch in preparation for me having the baby and him thinking that he was going to be in charge of meals for a while. But a lot of that bread at this point is 2 weeks old, and so I'm using it up right now before it goes stale. So I don't have a toaster. With such a large family, that doesn't make sense. I just toast stuff under the broiler in the oven. So after we were done, we have this delicious egg casserole here. It was actually really, really good. We have some toast with some canned apple butter and tomato jam that I already had opened in the fridge. And then we have our little fruit salad here, just some berries and oranges and apples. And so this is what those plates looked like. It was a nice way to ring in the new year. Everybody kind of slept in, very tired, because half of the children had stayed up, made it to midnight with us, so they enjoyed this meal when they woke up. The next thing we're going to do is work on lunch, and I'm going to make pizza. So I started with 2 cups of water in my mixer, and then I added to that 4 teaspoons of yeast, and then about the equivalent of maybe 2 teaspoons of honey. And we're just going to get that mixed around so that the yeast is mixed into the water, and then set that aside and let that yeast activate for about 10 minutes. In the meantime, I'm going to get out some leftover olives and salami and other veggies that were in the fridge that were left over from the previous night. We're going to get these all chopped up and ready for our pizzas. I always open too many jars of olives. I forget that it's really only Adam and a couple of my sons that enjoy olives, and so we always have them left over when I make a snack spread. So pizza is the perfect way to use those up. And then we had quite a few mushrooms. Adam had done a lot of the grocery shopping for New Year's Eve for me, and way too many mushrooms, so we're going to add those to our pizza too. So to our yeast mixture that is now activated, we are going to add 5 cups of flour. Right now I'm using up all-purpose flour. We're going to be grinding our own flour here very shortly. And then I'm just sprinkling in maybe the equivalent of about 4 tablespoons of avocado oil. Any kind of oil would work for this. Now I like to add a little bit of oregano and some salt to my pizza dough. And then I've got this in my Bosch mixer here. We're just going to put the lid on and let the mixer do the work for me while I work on making my pizza sauce. So I'm just starting with 2 little half pints of home canned tomato paste that I made in some videos with you guys last fall. This is going to be what I use for my sauce. I find that approximately 1 pint of sauce is enough for 2 pizzas for my family. So we're starting with the paste. I'm just going to drizzle in a little bit of avocado oil. It's just whatever was left in the bottom of this jar. It was maybe like 2 teaspoons. A little bit of oregano. We like our sauce sweet, so I'm just adding a little bit of honey. And then I think I forgot to show you that I added a little bit of salt. We're going to mix that up, and that will be our sauce. So by the time I had my sauce made, the pizza dough was mostly mixed together and had started kneading. I like to always finish my dough kneading it by hand. Just allows me to get my hands on it and get it to the texture that I like. So I haven't been doing a lot of baking over the last month because I just haven't been feeling my best. So I'm excited to get back into baking over the pantry challenge and really stretching those skills for myself this year. So we're just going to get some parchment paper on our baking sheets here. I split that dough into half so that we can make 2 little pizzas. Now, typically for a meal, I would make 3 pizzas, but a lot of my family was just kind of fooded out. We had so much to eat on New Year's Eve day with the snack spread setting out that a lot of the kids said they weren't extremely hungry for lunch on this day. So I only made 2 pizzas, but on a normal day, 2 would definitely not be enough to feed all of my children. But thankfully, on this day, I only had to make 2. So here is the all of the toppings. I also added some of our home canned pickled garlic scapes and pickled banana peppers. I have some kids that like pepperoni, some kids that don't and prefer salami, so some kids that like some toppings and not others. Sometimes it's easier just to make little personal pan pizzas, but that was too much work for me on this day. So we're just trying our best to make little sections of pizza that will please everybody. But as you guys know, we are a dairy-free family. My oldest son has an anaphylactic dairy allergy, so our pizza cannot have cheese on it. It's basically just bread with the sauce and the toppings, and that is how we like it. So we're going to get these in the oven on about 400 degrees for about 20 minutes, and this is what it looks like when it's done. Like I said, it's very different than a typical pizza because it doesn't have cheese. We do not like the dairy-free cheese alternatives that are available in the store. Not only are they super expensive, but we don't really like the texture when they melt, and the taste just isn't that great for how much you spend on it. So we just eat it like this, and this is what my kids think of when they think of pizza. And you know what? It fills their bellies, and they really enjoy it. Now, for dinner, I had all of the leftover crackers from our snack spread, and I always open too many packages of crackers. I don't know what my problem is. I do it every year, and I need to come up with a way to use these up before they go stale. So I thought, you know what sounds good? Let's make fried chicken, and I'm just going to crush up all of the crackers that were left over from the New Year's Eve spread, and that can be the breading for our chicken. And some of these crackers were like rosemary flavored, so they really did give a great flavor to the chicken. Adam and the kids really enjoyed it. So I had kids napping. Otherwise, I would have put the crackers in a blender, but I knew that that would wake them up. So we just crushed them by hand, and then I got my chicken chopped up into smaller chunks to fry. Now, while I'm thinking about it here, I had to get out my vegetables, and these are the leftover vegetables from our veggie tray, and I decided to just take the broccoli and the cauliflower and the carrots from the tray, and we're going to roast those with some mushrooms also that were left over in the fridge. I still have that celery left over, and I think I'm going to make like a chicken salad or something with that over the weekend, but just adding all of these vegetables to get them out of the fridge. I thought this would be a lovely addition to our fried chicken. I'm just going to drizzle all the vegetables with a little bit of olive oil, and then we'll just salt and pepper it. I'm not going to add a ton of seasoning to it. And then I'm going to massage all the vegetables into that oil, make sure they're all covered pretty evenly. And then these are just going to roast in the oven on about 350 degrees while I work on the fried chicken, which is going to take me a little while to get it all fried up. So let's get those in the oven. Now I need to get my fat ready for frying. This is some home rendered tallow from our homegrown beef here. I had just melted it for a little bit, gotten it soft in the oven while the oven was preheating for the vegetables, just to get it soft enough to get it out of those jars. This is a total of 1 quart of tallow. We're going to put that on the stove and get it hot while I prepare everything for the fried chicken. So we just have a little egg that we'll dip the chicken into, and then we will dip it after the egg into our cracker crumbs, and that is what we will have for our fried chicken. And yes, as you may see, it is nearing dinner time here on New Year's Day, and I am still in my pajamas. But you know what? That's what happens not only on a regular New Year's Day, but also on a New Year's Day when you are overdue pregnant. Clothes are optional at this point. I think it's perfectly acceptable to stay in your pajamas all day when you're this pregnant. You deserve to be comfortable because there's very little in your life that's comfortable when you're this pregnant. So we are just frying the chicken in the tallow here until the breading gets to be a golden brown. And then what I like to do is I put it on paper towels for a little bit to drain some of the grease off. And then I move that fried chicken to a baking dish and put it in the oven to keep it warm, and to make sure that the center is thoroughly cooked while I do another batch of chicken. Because when you have a family this large, you're just doing multiple batches of chicken. So keeping it in the oven will keep it warm and crispy and make sure the center is fully cooked. I did set aside some chicken that I left unbreaded for myself because I don't eat gluten. And this is how everything turned out. It was so delicious. Everybody loved this meal. They said the cracker crumbs made a great breading. So that is what I'm going to do from now on when I inevitably make the mistake of opening too many packages of crackers. I don't know why I do that every year. So the first day of the challenge is over, and I am very happy with how much of the stuff we cleared out of the refrigerator, but I'm going to need to do more here on day 2. So I'm starting with a breakfast casserole. I've greased the bottom of my baking dish. Here's some more of that store-bought bread that I just cut up into little chunks here. We are going to make a French toast casserole. So I'm starting with my eggs. I need approximately 18 eggs for this casserole. I'm going to add a little bit of milk. It's maybe a cup of almond milk, sprinkling in some cinnamon and some nutmeg. You could add whatever you like. I don't put sugar in this because we're going to put sugar on top of the French toast casserole in the form of maple syrup. But if you're not going to use maple syrup, maybe add a little bit of sugar to your egg mixture here. And then all we're going to do is pour this over the top, get it in the oven, and let it bake on 350 degrees for about 40 minutes. I just like to make sure that all of that bread is coated in the egg, or else it will kind of burn on the top. So you just want to make sure everything is covered and then get that in the oven. And this is what that looks like. Super easy. It's way easier than sitting there and flipping French toast for 8 kids individually. So you just bake it in the oven and get it done. Drizzle some maple syrup over it. You could do powdered sugar or any kind of fruit syrup. and this is always a hit. My little ones get tiny pieces, as you can see. Big kids usually get 2 larger pieces, and that is enough for the family. And a lot of you ask, what do I eat for breakfast since I can't eat bread on the days they eat something bready? And I just eat the leftovers. So I had leftover chicken and vegetables that day. I had to run to my midwife that day, so I was not home to film lunch. Adam had made sandwiches and leftover chips from New Year's Eve for the kids. But when I got home, I did make cookies out of the leftover popcorn from New Year's Eve. Usually this just goes to the chickens, but I thought on this day, why don't I decrease our food waste and turn it into something edible for the family? So I started with 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, and to that I added 2 cups of sugar and just a little bit of salt. And then I'm going to add 4 cups of the popcorn. This was a new idea for me. I saw it online. I was looking up ways to use leftover popcorn, and I saw popcorn cookies mentioned, and I thought, that is worth a try. I need a dessert for tonight anyways. So the recipe that I'm kind of using as a base, but definitely adapting to make my own, called for 2 cups of chocolate chips. I'm using white chocolate chips. It called for a cup of pecans. I'm doing a cup of dried cranberries instead. And those are all of the dry ingredients. We're just going to mix that together. The original recipe called for butter. I'm going to use avocado oil. It called for a cup of butter. I used a cup of avocado oil, and if I had it to do over again, I would probably only do a half a cup of avocado oil, and then I would add a half a cup of almond milk or something, because the cookies felt kind of greasy, and it made the edges of the cookies kind of crisp up a little more than I would have liked. But you live and you learn. So I would only do a half a cup of oil if you're making these dairy-free. And then add 2 eggs. I started mixing it up, and I realized that it was going to need a little bit of extra liquid, so I did add a half a cup of almond milk. So in the future, I would do a half a cup of avocado oil and then a full cup of almond milk. And then I had to, because of that popcorn being so big, I had to really work with it with my hands to get it into a cookie dough texture. But it turned out great, and this gave me almost 2 dozen cookies, and we baked those in the oven on 350 degrees for about 12 to 15 minutes. Just kind of depends on how hot your oven is. And these actually turned out wonderful. Adam said he liked it. The popcorn was kind of salty to begin with, and he said mixed with the sweetness of the cookie and the chocolate, that was really delicious. So just an idea for a way to use up popcorn. Like I said, if it goes to the chickens, they'll just turn it into eggs, but why waste it on the animals when we can turn it into an edible food, especially a cookie, because those won't last long here in the house with my children. We ended up using these cookies. Some of the kids had them for snacks, and then the leftovers we had with dessert on this night's dinner that I'm going to show you here in a little bit. So as I mentioned, I had been at my midwife all day. It's a 90-minute drive to my midwife, so I was gone for a total of 4 hours. Didn't get back until 3 o'clock and was extremely tired, so I needed a quick dinner. And thankfully, I have a lot of canned food. I decided to make beef stew, and Adam didn't want stew. He wanted a beef broth with some kind of greens in it, and that was the perfect opportunity to use up the leftover sushi nori. I didn't use a full package of nori on New Year's, and this will be a great way to use this up. So we're going to start making our beef stew. I have a quart here of my home canned beef stew starter. I made this for you last summer or fall. It's basically just the beef. It has bay leaves, celery, parsley, garlic, onion, salt, pepper, all of the seasonings that I would want to put into my beef stew, just kind of concentrated and ready to go. And to it, I'm going to start by adding a quart of potatoes. These are just plain potatoes, not even salted. It's just peeled potatoes that I pressure canned, and I pressure can them a lot of times specifically for this purpose. So from there, we're going to add our carrots. These were also pressure canned, raw packed just in water, no salt or anything. So I added the carrots along with the broth that they are canned in. And then finally, I'm going to add an extra quart of beef broth. This was onion broth, like a French onion soup base. Very concentrated onion flavor that just adds a little something extra to the beef stew. So we're starting out with those 4 quarts, I am going to use a little water to try to get all of the remnants of flavor out of some of these jars that have solids stuck to the sides. We'll dump that in to our pot, and then it's time to get that on the stove. And since everything is already cooked, all I really need to do is warm it up. It's only going to take maybe 10 minutes or so. It already has all the seasonings in it from the soup base. I'll just add a little salt to taste to make sure it has the right amount of salt. And now I'm working on Adam's soup that he wanted. This is just 1 quart of beef broth. It was a seasoned beef broth. You know, it's all salted. It has all the herbs and veggie flavors in it. And then here's that leftover nori that I was talking about. I'm just kind of crumbling it up with my fingers. He had said he wanted greens and thought maybe I could add some canned spinach. And I said, hey, I have a better idea. Why don't we add seaweed? And he thought that sounded really good. So nori is so healthy for you. It's actually better for you than things like spinach. So why not use that in something other than sushi? It works great in soup. And then he also requested some mushrooms. I'm still trying to use up the rest of those mushrooms in the fridge before they go bad. So I just chopped a few of those up and added them to his little brothy soup. Here is what our stew looked like. Such an easy convenience comfort meal. And here is what Adam's broth looked like. He just added a little salt and pepper to it, and it was absolutely delicious. So that is what we ate this week on the challenge.
Okay, so that's it for this short and sweet week of meals. As I mentioned, next week we will have a full week to share with you. I hope you are enjoying the challenge so far. If you are participating and sharing any kind of content on YouTube, make sure you're using the hashtag 3riverschallenge. If you click on that hashtag, it will bring up all of the other content creators that are participating. It's a great way to find other accounts and to glean some wisdom, learn some recipes, learn some tips and tricks for food preservation, and ways to use your food storage very frugally to create wholesome meals for your family. If you are on Instagram, it's slightly changed this year. Instagram no longer allows you to follow hashtags, which became kind of a problem for the challenge. So we have created an account that is named 3 Rivers Challenge. And if you follow that account and tag that account in your content that you put there, then you can see everybody else that's participating and find accounts that way. There are other platforms. I am not on TikTok. I'm not really on Facebook, but I know there are a lot of people that participate there, so I'm sure you can search the hashtags there and find other people as well. I'm just so grateful for this community. I'm so excited for another year of doing this pantry challenge. It's so fun to just see what everybody's doing and to glean from everybody who's sharing here. So, all right, friends, we'll see you next week. Bye.